Do you ever feel stretched too thin, busy but not productive, or like your life is being hijacked by other people's agendas? Today on the Book Summaries channel, we are exploring Essentialism, the disciplined pursuit of less by Greg McKeown, a book that will teach you how to reclaim your time and energy by doing only what truly matters. This chapter introduces the core concept of essentialism as a disciplined approach to life and work. It is not about doing more things in less time, but about doing only the right things. The author explains that when we try to do everything, we make a millimeter of progress in a million directions. An essentialist, however, makes significant progress in just a few areas that truly matter. This shift requires moving away from the mindset of I have to I choose to. It also involves moving from it's all important to only a few things are vital. By applying a more selective criteria for what is essential, we regain control of our own choices. The chapter emphasizes that if you don't prioritize your life, someone else will. It sets the foundation for a lifestyle centered on design rather than default. Living as an essentialist means constantly asking, is this the very most important thing I should be doing with my time and resources right now? McKeown argues that while we may not always have control over our options, we always have control over our choice among them. Many people suffer from learned helplessness, believing they no longer have a choice in their commitments. When we surrender our ability to choose, we give others the power to decide for us. The chapter highlights that the ability to choose cannot be taken away or even given away. It can only be forgotten. To become an essentialist, one must cultivate the awareness that choice is a superpower. We must celebrate our ability to say no to the non-essential. This requires a mental shift to recognize that choice is an active action, not just a passive thought. By reclaiming our power to choose, we stop being victims of our schedules. Choice is what defines the path of the essentialist. It is the first step toward living a life that is purposeful rather than reactive. This chapter explores the reality that most opportunities and tasks are actually noise, while only a few are truly valuable. The author references the Pareto principle, which suggests that 80% of results come from 20% of efforts. In the world of essentialism, this ratio is even more extreme, where almost everything is seen as having little value. To discern what is essential, we must develop a sharp eye for the vital few versus the trivial many. This contradicts the common belief that everything is equally important. An essentialist spends more time evaluating their options so that they can do less later. This discernment prevents us from getting caught up in the undisciplined pursuit of more. We must learn to look past the immediate demands and see the long-term impact. By realizing that most things are unimportant, we can focus our intensity on the things that are. Discernment is the mental filter that protects our most precious resources. It allows us to find the signal in the midst of the noise. Essentialists accept that they cannot have it all or do it all, making trade-offs an inevitable part of life. Instead of asking, how can I do both? The essentialist asks, which problem do I want to solve? Trying to ignore trade-offs leads to this straddle strategy, where we try to do two things at once and fail at both. This chapter teaches that trade-offs are not something to be avoided, but something to be embraced as an opportunity. Every time we say yes to something, we are inadvertently saying no to something else. By making conscious trade-offs, we ensure that we are sacrificing the right things for the best things. This requires a high level of honesty about our limits and capacities. We must stop pretending that we can expand our time infinitely. Making a trade-off is a sign of maturity and strategic thinking. It is a vital tool for ensuring that our energy is directed toward our highest point of contribution. Trade-offs allow us to focus on the one thing that will make the biggest difference. To think clearly and discern what is essential, we need space and time away from the distractions of the world. The author notes that many people are too busy to think about how busy they are. We need to create a space to escape, so that we can evaluate our lives and work from a distance. This isn't just about taking a vacation. It's about making space for boredom and deep thought in our daily lives. Without this space, we are constantly in a reactive mode, responding to the latest email or ping. An essentialist schedules time to just think, read, and reflect. This deliberate unavailability is what allows for true creativity and strategic planning. We must protect this time as if it were a high-stakes meeting. The chapter suggests that some of the most successful people in history used isolation to produce their best work. By escaping the noise, we can finally hear the voice of what is truly vital. Space is the breath of the essentialist life. This chapter focuses on becoming a journalist of our own lives by looking for the lead story among all the information. We are often overwhelmed by details and miss the bigger picture. An essentialist trains themselves to filter out the irrelevant and find the core message or trend. This involves listening for what is not being said and looking for the hidden connections. By keeping a journal or regularly reviewing our progress, we can see patterns that aren't visible in the moment. The goal is to avoid getting lost in the weeds of daily tasks. We must develop a big-picture perspective to understand where our energy should go. This requires discipline to stop and observe rather than just acting. Looking means being present and attentive to the reality of our situation. It allows us to spot the essential amidst the trivial before we commit our energy. By looking closely, we can avoid the traps of the non-essential. It is about finding the signal in the chaos of information. Contrary to the idea that play is a waste of time, the author argues it is essential for peak performance and creativity. Play expands our minds and allows us to see things in new ways that logic alone cannot. It reduces stress and helps us to better explore our options and opportunities. An essentialist recognizes that play is not just for children, but a vital tool for problem solving. It builds the brain's plasticity and fosters empathy and connection. By making time for play, we actually become more productive and effective in our essential work. Play reminds us of the joy of discovery and prevents burnout. It is an antidote to the rigidness of a busy life. The chapter encourages us to reintegrate play into our routines to spark innovation. When we play, we are more open to the vital few ideas that could change everything. Play is a key element in discerning what is truly meaningful in life. The most important asset we have is ourselves, and sleep is the primary way we protect that asset. Many people view sleep as a luxury or a sign of weakness, but an essentialist sees it as a necessity for high contribution. Sleep deprivation impairs our judgment and our ability to discern the essential from the non-essential. 1 hour of sleep can result in several more hours of much higher productivity the next day. This chapter debunks the "I can get by on 4 hours" myth and highlights the biological need for rest. When we are tired, we lack the mental clarity to say no to the wrong things. Protecting the asset means prioritizing our health so that we can perform at our best. By sleeping well, we increase our cognitive capacity and emotional intelligence. An essentialist intentionally invests in rest to achieve more in the long run. It is the ultimate form of self-discipline. Sleep is the foundation upon which all other essential choices are built. To truly live as an essentialist, we must apply rigorous and extreme criteria to the choices we make. The author introduces the 90% rule. If you evaluate an option and it doesn't score at least a 90, then the score is effectively 0, and you say no. This prevents us from accepting pretty good things that distract us from great things. We often say yes to things that are good enough out of fear of missing out. However, if it isn't a hell yes, then it should be a no. By using extreme criteria, we force ourselves to find only the very best opportunities. This requires courage to reject options that most people would happily accept. This selection process protects our time for the things that are truly top tier. It ensures that our lives are not cluttered with mediocrity. Selectivity is the filter that keeps our energy focused. It is about being ruthlessly committed to the highest quality of life and work. Vague goals lead to vague results and wasted energy. The author emphasizes the importance of an essential intent, a goal that is both inspirational and measurable. Most organizations and individuals have mission statements that are too broad to be useful. An essential intent is a single decision that eliminates 1,000 later decisions. It provides a clear North Star for every action and choice. When the intent is clear, people know exactly what to do and what to ignore. This clarity reduces friction and increases the speed of progress. The chapter suggests that we must be brave enough to name our one most important objective. Once the intent is set, everything else falls into place. Clarity is the antidote to the chaos of having too many options. It allows us to align our efforts toward a singular, meaningful outcome. A clear intent is the ultimate tool for simplification. Saying no is one of the most difficult but necessary skills for an essentialist. We often fear social awkwardness or letting people down, which leads to non-essential commitments. This chapter provides strategies for saying no gracefully and firmly without ruining relationships. It explains that a no to a request is not a no to the person. By saying no to the trivial, we are saying yes to the vital. People actually respect those who have clear boundaries and a sense of priority. We must learn to separate the decision from the relationship. The author encourages us to be editors of our social lives, cutting out the fluff. Saying no requires courage, but it is the only way to protect our time. It is a tool for integrity, ensuring our actions match our priorities. The more we practice the graceful no, the easier it becomes. It is the shield that guards our essential work. This chapter deals with the sunk cost fallacy, where we continue to invest in a failing project or relationship just because we have already put time into it. An essentialist has the courage to admit they made a mistake and uncommit. We must learn to look at our commitments as if we were starting them today. If we wouldn't sign up for it now, we should get out of it as soon as possible. This requires overcoming the psychological bias of ownership. We often hold on to things longer than we should out of pride or fear. Uncommitting frees up resources for new, more essential pursuits. It's about being willing to cut our losses to win bigger in the future. The chapter offers techniques like zero-based budgeting for our time and energy. By letting go of the past, we make room for a better present. Uncommitting is a sign of wisdom, not weakness. It is the process of pruning the dead branches of our lives. An editor's job is to remove the non-essential parts of a story so the core message can shine. In life, we must also be editors, constantly reviewing and refining our activities. Editing involves cutting out the unnecessary, condensing the important, and correcting the course. It is not a one-time event, but a continuous discipline. A good editor makes things better by taking things away. This requires a level of detachment from our own work and schedules. By editing our lives, we make the essential more visible and impactful. We should always be looking for ways to simplify our routines. The author argues that editing is the hidden key to a masterpiece life. It prevents the bloat of tasks and responsibilities that naturally happens over time. Editing allows us to maintain our focus on our essential intent. It is the art of subtraction for the sake of addition. Boundaries are often seen as restrictive, but for the essentialist, they are the key to freedom. Without clear boundaries, other people's priorities will bleed into our own. This chapter teaches how to set and enforce limits that protect our time and mental space. Boundaries prevent us from becoming the path of least resistance for others' demands. They allow us to work without interruption and stay focused on our essential tasks. Setting boundaries early saves us from resentment and burnout later. We must identify our deal breakers and stick to them. Boundaries create a safe space for us to perform our highest point of contribution. They are a form of self-respect and a signal to others about what we value. By limiting what we allow into our lives, we expand our ability to do what matters. Boundaries are the walls that protect the garden of the essentialist. The world is unpredictable, and the essentialist prepares for this by creating buffers. A buffer is a block of time or resources that acts as a safety net for unexpected events. We often fall victim to the planning fallacy, assuming things will go perfectly and take less time than they do. This chapter suggests adding a 50% buffer to every time estimate. By having a buffer, we reduce stress and avoid the panic mode that leads to poor decisions. Buffers allow us to handle crises without sacrificing our essential work. They give us the breathing room to be present and thoughtful. An essentialist does not live life on the edge of a breakdown. Instead, they build in margins that allow for grace and flexibility. Buffers are a strategic investment in our sanity and performance. They transform the unexpected from a disaster into a mere inconvenience. Preparedness is the hallmark of the disciplined essentialist. Instead of trying to push harder to achieve goals, the essentialist looks for the slowest hiker, the primary constraint holding them back. By identifying and removing this obstacle, progress happens naturally and with less effort. This chapter teaches the art of theory of constraints applied to personal life. We often add more solutions to a problem when we should be removing the cause. Subtracting a barrier is more effective than adding a new task. This requires a deep understanding of the system we are working in. We must ask, what is the one thing that, if removed, would make everything else easier? By focusing on the friction rather than the force, we achieve more with less strain. Subtraction is a more elegant way to solve problems. It simplifies the path to our goals. The essentialist looks for the least effortful way to produce the highest result. Subtraction is the ultimate form of optimization. Essentialists focus on small, incremental progress rather than trying to achieve huge leaps all at once. The power of small wins is that they build momentum and confidence. This chapter emphasizes the minimum viable progress. What is the smallest step I can take right now? By celebrating these small achievements, we stay motivated for the long haul. Huge, daunting goals can often lead to paralysis. However, a series of small, essential steps leads to massive success over time. We should focus on the process rather than just the outcome. Small wins act as a feedback loop, showing us that we are on the right track. This approach reduces the fear of failure and makes the essential path more sustainable. Progress is the fuel of the essentialist life. By moving forward just a little bit every day, we eventually cover a vast distance. It is about consistency over intensity. Small wins are the building blocks of greatness. Routine is a powerful tool because it makes essential behaviors automatic, requiring less mental energy. By creating a design for our day, we enter a state of flow more easily. This chapter explains that the most creative and productive people have the most disciplined routines. A routine removes the need to make decisions about what to do next. This preserves our limited decision fatigue for the most important tasks. We can use routines to habitualize the essential and default the non-essential out of our lives. It's about making the right things the easiest things to do. A good routine starts with small changes and builds over time. It creates a rhythm that supports our essential intent. While it may seem boring to some, routine is the secret to high performance. It allows the mind to focus on the work rather than the schedule. Routine is the structure that sets the essentialist free. Focus is about being fully present in the current moment. The author uses the acronym WIN. What's important now? We often lose focus by worrying about the past or the future, which prevents us from doing our best work today. An essentialist trains their mind to return to the present whenever it wanders. This chapter explores the difference between multitasking, which is impossible, and multi-focusing, which is damaging. True focus means doing one thing at a time with all of our attention. This depth of focus leads to higher quality results and a more meaningful experience. We must clear away the mental clutter to see the task at hand. By focusing on the now, we reduce anxiety and increase our effectiveness. Focus is a muscle that needs to be exercised daily. It is the final step in the pursuit of less. When we are truly focused, we become unstoppable in our essential work. In the concluding chapter, McKeown reflects on how essentialism is not just something you do, but something you be. It becomes a part of your identity and how you see the world. As you live as an essentialist, you find that you have more clarity, more control, and more joy. You start to live by design, not by default. The benefits of this lifestyle extend far beyond productivity. It leads to a life of meaning and contribution. You stop living a life of regret and start living a life that matters. Being an essentialist means having the integrity to stay true to your own path despite the noise. It is a journey of constant refinement and choice. The author encourages us to start small and be patient with ourselves. The more we choose the essential, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, you don't just do essentialism, you are an essentialist. It is a life lived with no regrets.